part of Florida. Florida is a wonky state, so just saying you're in Florida doesn't really help people. But I'm
Okay.
in the northeastern part of Florida, which is a lot different than southern Florida or western Florida. My fellow Floridians can back me up here.
Yeah,
So, but yes, we are in the same time zone though, which is very helpful for
that
scheduling.
does absolutely comes in handy from time to time.
I'm pretty sure we were recording together though for about a year before you were like, you can stop saying Eastern because I'm in the Eastern time zone. Just
Well, I mean, I get in the habit of it too, right? Like you're dealing with people, whatever. But yeah. All right. So, what have you been up to this week? We are going to talk with our friends who are hopping in online and watching us. But yeah, what have you been up to today? It's Monday. It
It's
feels like
only Monday, but it feels like it's the end of the week already.
right.
Because, and this is why we were late. We were talking about this. Because when you're in church communications, there really is no week. There is no end of the week and then start of the next week. You're all, as they say in the church space, Sunday's always coming. Well, for a church communicator, the next minute, the next day, the
Yep.
next whatever
Always.
is campaign, email series, devotional, it's always coming. So, for me in my job with the Texan Church, we've been gearing up for some fun things coming up for us. And of course, I'm always trying to keep up with what's happening on the social media front. And my favorite thing to do is to make reels these days. That's my favorite. I love it.
Why?
Why? Well, first of all, I don't have to create a graphic. I can just do a
Okay.
quick video. It
All right.
can be like 5 or 10 seconds or 8 seconds.
Yeah.
Share something helpful. That's the so you want to provide value with a reel. This I'd learned this trick. You want to provide value or this like way to make sure my content is, you know, what it's
Yeah.
supposed to be is
Valuable.
the reel has to provide value no matter when somebody watches it. So you don't want to
Okay.
say in a reel, join Bryan and Jeanette tomorrow on Facebook Live or whatever.
Okay.
Because if they're watching it 3 days from now, it's already happened,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Um, so you want to provide something that provides value no matter when somebody watches it. But the value can be either like valuable information. So, we talk to church communicators and try to give them insights and tools and tips and tricks.
Yeah.
Or the value could just be humor, which, as you're aware,
That's most
I'm
of
a
the reels
fan.
that I watch. It's all
Right.
humor. Like
So it kind
real
of,
value.
so yeah, so the reel itself can be humorous, and then the caption can have that more like, your content pillar type
Okay.
content. That's, yeah.
Okay.
So anyway,
Interesting.
yeah. So that's my favorite thing to do lately is, I don't have to, we have a wonderful graphic designer, but I don't, I don't always have to bother him with like, hey, I need this thing and this, and then, I can just go do it. And so I really have enjoyed that lately. That's what I've been
Nice.
up to.
Okay.
And what about you?
Oh man. I am going to British Columbia tomorrow, so I've been
Oh,
getting ready
yes.
for that. And then next week, I'm leading a workshop here in Grand Rapids. Kind of the same idea, but yeah, leading some groups around the idea of just like administration and communication, how to, first how to do that better, but also trying to build networks and communities kind of regionally and trying to
Mm-hmm.
get people together to build those relationships because, yeah, I think, and we've talked about this a lot, right? Like
Right.
people just feel isolated. Like there's no professional networks for church communicators like there are for pastors or worship leaders or whatever. So
Oh, there you are. Okay. Whew.
did you lose me?
Yeah, I thought I was going to have to go on my own solo.
Well, I'm not sure which one of us froze because you froze on my screen. So
Okay.
maybe it went normal on
Yeah,
YouTube.
hopefully. Hopefully. I told a quick joke. I'm just kidding.
It wouldn't put it past you. All
Well,
right, so
yes. So we talk about community a lot, is
yeah,
what the last thing I heard you say. Hmm.
yeah, and I think that one of the reasons that we wanted to do this live stream today is to try to bring that community together a little bit. Try
Yeah.
to, um, just provide a space for church communicators to, even if you're just chatting, like on YouTube, that's a space that you can, build community or join our Facebook group or these other places that provide that space online, I think is valuable sometimes. But yeah, it's, I
have to tell you this. I didn't get a chance to do this because I had a family obligation, but we're talking about bringing community together. So
yeah.
I love Twitter. It's one of my things that I love, not for work or anything, but just that's my place I hang out a lot. And so I'm on, I with a bunch of people that are in marketing Twitter, but there's also a Twitter of people in my city. And they actually had a meetup yesterday in person at a local coffee shop. And then they posted about it afterwards. And I thought that's just such a great example of like that online community. Like they felt comfortable enough with each other to like meet up in person, which I think is really kind of what we talk about a lot is, you start that sometimes the relationship, like when you first joined Facebook, you were friends with people you already knew, right?
Yeah.
And now you're friends with people you may have never met. And then, but then it's really great when you get to meet them in person. So that's kind of what happened this weekend. So I hope to be able to join the next one. But anyway, that was when you were talking about bringing community together. I was like, hey, that would be a great example. So
yeah, and yeah, so that's kind of one of the main reasons that I'm doing these workshops this week and next week in these areas that I'm at is just for that idea of community. And that's one thing, we've spent a lot of time, probably mostly off air, I guess, kind of talking about this idea of community. But we've also talked a little bit recently about how it's just like a stressful time. Why do you keep losing me?
I don't know.
So we've been talking about how it's kind of a stressful time for church communicators, right? You have, fall just kicked off. You have your whatever you're doing for Halloween, trunk or treat or whatever. Going into Thanksgiving, going into Advent and Christmas. I don't know. What do you think? What do you say?
Well, I hear this all the time from church communicators, but I was telling you before we hit go live that I saw an uptick of it in the last couple of weeks of like, okay, I've got to get ready for trunk or treat. Trunk or treat's coming, or the fall festival or whatever. We got to do this. And then it happened. And then instead of being able to take a deep breath, it was take a deep breath and dive right back in, because here comes November 1st and we're doing 30 days or 25 days of thankfulness, or we're getting ready for Advent, an Advent campaign, or, I just got a text today from our communications director that works at our church, and she's like, hey, can you do a quick video, because want to do videos every day of members and about their thankfulness. And she probably wanted to have that stuff done already, but she unfortunately we don't have if you just do X, Y, and Z, you will not have that,
right?
Because that, yes, you could have more people, you could get volunteers, and volunteers are important. We have a whole, where we've launched a lot of episodes about that. And yes, you can work on that, but that in itself doesn't necessarily mean that you're not managing that team or training those volunteers or all that kind of stuff. And, sometimes that's just not that's just not a reality for, where you are.
Yeah.
And so there is no easy answer, but I do think it's very helpful. I know it's very helpful for me. And one of the things that I really liked about the church communicator community was to know that I'm not alone. I'm not the only person, trying to just keep my head above water. I'm not the only person that is trying to keep up with Facebook's latest update they've done, or what does it mean? There's something going on today, October 31st, there's something going on Instagram that's causing a lot of people to, have to, I don't want to say panic, but they're like, oh, what's happening? All these things look weird. And,
really?
So we're always trying to keep up with that. And,
okay.
And so, I think that, knowing that you're not alone in that, and knowing that, and sometimes like I'm more of a social media person, like that's kind of where I lean. But I also know for people who are like also dealing with more internal communications, the bulletin, the newsletter, the Sunday school class information, like that can be equally as stressful, because as pastors and church leaders love to remind us all, Sunday is always coming. And so even if that's what you're dealing with on a regular basis, it can still be very stressful. I know that my former colleague at my church that was in charge of the bulletin can attest it takes like the whole week to do it.
Oh yeah,
And then
for
there's
sure.
still going to be problems, right?
Right.
So we just, I just always try to encourage church communicators to, remind each other that you're not alone, and it's okay. You don't want to wallow in the busyness, but at the same time, it's okay to say, yep, it's busy, and it's always busy.
Yeah, no doubt. So one of the questions that we got sent in, let me see if I can actually play it.
Okay.
So Valerie sent us a message asking about blogs. So let's see if I can figure this out first and play it. It says it's going.
Okay. This is very exciting.
I know.
Hot off the presses tech.
Man. When you get the rainbow wheel of death.
We all can relate. We can relate, Bryan. Like I was just saying, we can all relate.
I wonder how to best make use of a blog for ministry purposes. I also wonder, what are common errors that ministry leaders make when starting a blog or when creating content for blogs?
Yeah, so Valerie's asking about a blog, which I spent a ton of time talking about or writing about at Church Juice. But blog content is great, and really it's not a whole lot of extra work because you have new content every Sunday. At the very minimum, you have new content happening every Sunday. And she also asked, not in this recording, but she asked a little bit later about how to keep it from looking stale, or how to keep your blog from feeling stale, or just just kind of like I don't know what other word to use, but where it doesn't really feel like it's current, and that it's something that's always refreshed and working with your website, that kind of thing. So what do you think about blogs for ministry? What does that look like for the church communicator?
Well, I love blogging. I think it's great. There's a lot of reasons to do blogging, for SEO, search engine optimization and stuff like that. But that's all the techie stuff. I'll let you talk about that. I love blogging for churches because it's a great way to share what God is doing in and through the people of your church.
Mm-hmm.
And so, she mentioned using it for ministry purposes, and that's, a very general idea, but there's a couple of different ways that you can take your blog. The first thing I would ask a church is, what are you going to do with the blog?
Yeah.
What are you going to, obviously you're going to put it on your website. It's going to be on your website. It's probably going to be, kind of hidden underneath a tab that says blog, right? But are you going to be sharing it on social media? Are you going to be sending it to your members in an email every week? How are you going to use it? So let's say it's, it's public in the sense that it's on your website, but it's really something that you'll be sharing primarily with your members or people that attend frequently. They're on your email list. Mm-hmm. Using your pastor's sermon series content is a great way to, kind of start blogging, right? Because as you said, that and repurpose it as a blog. I've seen some churches where they will if they have a video recording, take a snippet of it, use that, like this is his main point, and then write a brief call to action or some sort of devotional encouragement based on that. Yeah. So there's a couple different ways you can do it, but that's one easy way where you basically have the content and you're just repurposing it. one of the things that I've seen churches do also is especially for like sharing what God is doing in and through the people of their church. This have a conversation. And other times it was like, I'm going to tell people about this amazing woman that's been at our church for 50 years. I would get a quick picture of her with my phone, and or maybe I would ask her to share a picture of when she was serving at the soup kitchen or
Mm-hmm.
she wanted to do. He or she, and then I would write a quick like, did you know this person has been serving at our
Yeah.
local food bank for 50 years and been a member of this church for 50 years? These are some things, you know what I mean? Like, and it doesn't have to be super long or super formal. It could just be really basic. And that's just sharing about how this person not only is, she's a member of our church, but also how she's positively impacting the community. And we could talk a little bit about like how to title that or how to post that on social media so it would be something that someone else might want to read besides someone who's a member. Those are a couple things, but there's a lot of great things probably that your church is doing that is helpful for your community, whether they're a church member or not. That's my 2 cents.
Well, I would also say that the content, and you kind of hinted at this too, but the content that you create doesn't have to be just for your members.
Mm-hmm.
Like if your church is, you mentioned a food bank, if your church is really passionate and, going all in with the food bank, there are resources that you could create that kind of go along with your food bank that you could post as blogs.
Yes.
Food resources or other helpful support services. You can post that kind of content as blogs. You could also, if your church is all in on families or kids, we're in Halloween time, we're heading into the holidays, you can create a top 10 list of things to do during the Christmas season in your town, or there are tons of different types of content that you could create, which is important because if your website is static, where it's not getting updated a lot, then Google has no reason to show you as one of its first results. But if you know that you're answering questions that people are asking, which hopefully you are, then that's stuff that you can create into content, into regular blogs or whatever you call it, regular updated content. And Google will see that, your search engines will see that. That's what SEO is. And that will help you, if you're answering questions that people are asking, then that will help you rank higher when people are searching for whatever question that you are answering for them. So there's a lot of great ways, but you mentioned this, early on, that it needs to be part of your strategy too.
Yeah.
You can't just post a blog and then 6 months from now post another blog and then another 3 weeks post a blog. It needs to be part of your regular communication rhythms. And so I think if your church is thinking about starting a blog, which it should, then you need to build it into your regular rhythms. How are you communicating it to your members? Is it every week? How often are you publishing? Those kinds of questions. So I think there's definitely a lot of potential there for churches to do it well. The second part of our question, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. What are some of the common errors that ministry leaders make when they post a blog?
Well, and we've already kind of mentioned 2 of them. One of them is they just start it without considering who they're really trying to talk to.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. You really decide what, who your audience is and how and what will help them. Ultimately, I think the blog, just like everything else that comes from your church, needs to help people in some way, needs to provide value, answer the questions that they're asking. Another thing that you want to probably think about as well is it's okay to have categories. So as Bryan, as you were talking about, like, okay, so if you have a bunch of families and you want to have have blog posts that are geared towards families, that's really great. But maybe you also have that pastor that has those sermon series that are really good, and you want to share that content as well. It's okay to categorize your blog so that you have, and so that's two different audiences potentially.
Right.
Now we could have a conversation about the sermon series is probably and hopefully answering some questions that people have as well. And depending on how you write that content, how you tag it. So that's another thing. I don't want to get too much in the weeds because every blog platform works differently, but how you title it, the words you use, the keywords you use, how you use the description, all of those things will help the search engines find that post. And so depending on how you do that with the sermon series, with the blog post that you write, will increase your chances. But I do want to caution anybody who's thinking blogs help people get, if I write a blog, that'll help people get to my website, therefore, and because they've heard this. That's true, but that only works if you have a strategy. And so making sure, like, if you're the only one writing, then don't overcommit yourself. If you can have a couple of volunteers that are part of your team, that would be great. I did that for a little bit at my church. Also, we had one of our pastors that already had a blog. Times where he was sharing stuff that he was already doing. So those are a couple things. And then of course, might want to have a Grammarly account.
Yes, for sure.
Grammarly is not a sponsor of the Church Juice podcast. But I find it very helpful to because even
I use Grammarly all the time.
Even the most grammar geek people make mistakes. And so I highly recommend, that you do that. Although I do like the fact that you can
All right. Well, I think if a church is starting a blog, make it part of your strategy, make it consistent. That doesn't mean you have to post every day or even every week. If you post something once a month, I would recommend scheduling out what ideas you have. Involve other people, I think you said, which is good, especially your pastor, because they're writing already. You know, they can easily turn their manuscript into a blog post if that's how they write.
Well, and I think also there are tools that can help with that as well.
Right, for sure.
And so that's where you can, even if maybe they don't, maybe you have to transcribe the video because they don't write anything down. I don't know.
But even then, like, the transcription is helpful, right? It's essentially the same thing, just on the back end. So I think there are different ways that you can incorporate, sermon content or whatever. But I think it's a good idea for churches to start writing content because that's what people are searching for. And it's an easy way for you to get, like you were saying, kind of help Google find you and get people to your website. But then it needs to be part of a larger strategy. So what's the next step from there? What are people going to do? Probably not show up to your church right away. So what is that next step? And I think that's a good idea. But yeah. So as we kind of wrap this up, because it's already been 25 minutes.
I know.
And this went a lot quicker than I thought it would.
Well, I really love that question about blogging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was good. And I think over the next few weeks, we have some really cool ideas for our next episodes that we're planning over the next several weeks. And then we're going to take a few weeks off over the Christmas break. But we have, I should have looked. I think we have at least 7 or 8 more episodes coming before the end of the year, the end of this season. So, so if you haven't already, make sure that you, as you're watching, subscribe to the channel, get notifications turned on, then you won't miss any of our future episodes. They all drop on Mondays, and you can listen along if that's kind of more your jam, wherever you get podcasts from too. So thank you for joining us today. Thanks for watching along. This was fun.
Yes.
Something different. Yeah.
Something different.
Something
I'm all
different for
in.